Negotiators from Israel and Hamas have begun a fresh round of indirect peace talks in the Egyptian resort of Sharm El-Sheikh. U.S. President Trump is hoping that his 20-point plan to end the war will be in place by the end of this week. Hamas has accepted some of the points, including the release of all of the hostages. In the meantime, there is no let-up in Israel's offensive in Gaza City. The Hamas-controlled health authority says dozens of Palestinians have been killed in the latest Israeli strikes.
As Israeli and Hamas negotiators gathered alongside mediators in Egypt for peace talks, Gazans once more woke to bombs. For displaced Palestinians, negotiations on the 20-point Trump plan are a reason for cautious optimism.
The entire world is united in its desire to end the war, to stop the fighting, and to establish a Palestinian state eventually. God willing, I see a dim light at the end of the tunnel, but God willing, it will be good for everyone.
We're all worried that the ceasefire will not happen, and this is the final stage. This is the second time we've been displaced from the north to the south.
Israel continued its airstrikes and ground offensive in Gaza City, which claimed the lives of at least 19 people on Sunday. The Israeli military said it eliminated several armed Hamas cells that were threatening troops. The continued offensive defies explicit requests from US President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio to stop bombing the territory. Despite this, the US President remains positive that the negotiations in Egypt will be a success.
We had some very good meetings. The countries of the world, a lot of the countries surrounding Israel, frankly, Muslim, Arab, and many others, have had great meetings with Hamas, and it looks like it's working. I think it's going to go very quickly. The meetings seem to be very good.
Israel says until the terms of a deal are finalised, there will be no ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu says the responsibility lies with Hamas.
Hamas says that it accepted the deal. Now the onus is on Hamas. This plan consists of two parts. The first part is releasing all the hostages. Israel makes a tactical withdrawal, stays in Gaza. And then the second part is meant to demilitarize Gaza and disarm Hamas. That will be negotiated. Of course, I can't tell you if Hamas will agree to it.
On the eve of the second anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel, the negotiations in Egypt offer new hope for an end to the war.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Sanam Vakil. She's the director of the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House. She joins us now from London. It's good to have you with us. The U.S. president, as I'm sure you are aware, is striking a very optimistic tone about his Gaza plan, saying that the negotiations should only last a couple of days. What do you think?
Well, thank you for having me. I think the couple of days optimism is very important. It puts momentum, or it brings momentum to these negotiations. He would like this done by the end of the week so he can celebrate having achieved something. And there's huge amount of regional pressure behind President Trump's momentum, if you will. And this can shorten the haggling over the details that still need to be ironed out. So we'll just have to wait and see how close everybody gets.
Yeah, I mean, despite this lack of details, this deal does enjoy a lot of momentum, as well as pressure from leaders from around the world. I mean, what kind of a difference do you think that this is going to have on these talks this week?
Well, what we do have right now is a 20-point plan, a framework, which could be broken down into three baskets. Put quite simply, there's the first basket, which will be the hostage release, the Palestinian prisoner release, and Israel's tactical withdrawal. And that is what they're going to be ironing out primarily in the next few days in Cairo, but also trying to get to the second basket, which thinks through the governance piece, Hamas's disarmament, how Gaza is going to be managed going forward. So these sort of details are very important to getting Hamas to sign on, and of course, securing Israel's buy-in through this process.
Israel continues its offensive in Gaza, and that's despite President Trump's calls to stop the bombing. I'm wondering, what is a bigger threat right now to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Possibly crossing Trump and losing U.S. support, or losing support from the parties in his far-right coalition government and his government collapsing?
Well, I think right now Israel is continuing with the strikes to keep pressure on Hamas and to reassure the hardliners in his coalition that concessions will indeed buy these concrete returns. He's also framing the pressure as bargaining collateral to ensure maximal terms, for example, on hostages and withdrawal parameters. Ultimately, in the domestic climate of Israel, he's facing protests, very little trust among the population, and projecting strength is a political hedge. There is, very little trust between the regional states and Netanyahu as well. And so I think he's buying himself time while waiting to see how things unfold over the days ahead.
Netanyahu says that the first phases of the deal involve a tactical withdrawal of IDF troops to allow the handover of Israeli hostages in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners and detainees. How difficult, how complicated will this be?
This is much harder than it sounds. This swap requires airtight list. They have to agree on who is going to be released. All of the hostages that are not fully under Hamas's control have to be located. Medical triages have to be set up. Synchronized movement corridors have to be set up. And then there needs to be third-party monitoring. And Israel's tactical pullback has to be tied down and also monitored to prevent breaches on that side as well. So these logistical mediation talks in Cairo are aimed to iron out these friction points.
Sanam Vakil with Chatham House joining us from London tonight. We appreciate your time and your valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's go to Mairav Zonszein. She's a senior analyst on Israel at the International Crisis Group, that's a think tank, and joins us now from Tel Aviv. Mairav, after reporting on this war and discussing it with many experts like yourself for 2 years now, I get the feeling, and I'm not the only one, that the Trump plan is the closest the two sides have come to peace yet. Would you agree?
Good to be with you. I would agree it's the closest we've come to a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, and end to the war. I'm not sure I would call it a peace plan. I think what Trump has put forward is a very obscure guiding principles with the input of Arab and Muslim countries, with Netanyahu's signature on it. Trump has decided he's done and he wants to move forward with the end of war. We've heard that from him before, so I think the big question is, how far is he going to go to sustain the political pressure that he's currently putting on both sides? That's really the key here, is how to not just get the ceasefire, but keep the ceasefire in place.
Now, you mentioned it, the President Trump himself seems convinced these indirect negotiations will be successful, saying they are proceeding rapidly. Do you share Trump's optimism?
I don't, as much as I'd like to, and I think everybody in Gaza and everyone in Israel, minus certain elements of the far right in the government, would like to see this happen. It's just, we've been here many times. We've had talk about imminent ceasefires. We've had a ceasefire in January 2025 that Israel then broke. So again, it's not just about getting the ceasefire, it's about what happens and comes after it. But there's no doubt that Trump's efforts currently, whatever his interest may be, whether it's a Nobel Peace Prize or normalization or more deals with Gulf countries, whatever it is, he's currently seems to be on a mission to get this done quickly. Again, the logistics are really important here. I don't think it can happen as quickly as he promises, but there's no doubt that many, many people here on the ground who are suffering would like to see this happen.
Now, the families of hostages have shifted their appeals from their own government to President Trump. What does that say about overall trust in Netanyahu's leadership?
Well, I have to say that's been the case since even before Trump became president. You had pictures of Biden in the White House with families of hostages in 2024, sitting on the side with Biden and Netanyahu and his people sitting on the opposite side. So Israeli families of the hostages and in general, people who have been protesting for the hostage release for months and months now have put all of their faith and their pressure on the US president, first Biden and then Trump, because they don't trust Netanyahu is prioritizing the release of hostages.
Now let's look at the Palestinian side. Hamas has signaled conditional acceptance of the plan. What do you make of that, and what do we know about its internal calculations?
Well, Hamas has been quite consistent throughout this war that it would be willing to release all of the hostages in exchange for a prisoner release, for the end of war, and a full Israeli withdrawal. As far as I know, that hasn't changed. What has changed is that Hamas has been further decimated. The Gaza Strip has been destroyed. 90% of people have been displaced. And so Hamas is in a position where it's very, very difficult to say no to this deal, but it obviously needs guarantees. It needs to be able to know that if it releases all the hostages, it will receive an actual guarantee of end of war. It has also agreed to remove itself from power in Gaza as a sovereign. It's something that it didn't want to do in the first place. It's an armed resistance movement. So it has also agreed to do that. So these things have already been agreed upon. The real sticking point on this matter is whether Israel and the US are actually going to provide what they say they're going to provide, which is a full permanent ceasefire and end of war. Once that happens, you can start to negotiate a day after in Gaza, which currently under the Trump plan looks like it has no Palestinian mark on it and would be not good for the Palestinians. So the question is whether Arab and Muslim states can put pressure on allowing for there to be a more reasonable process in which Palestinians in Gaza can actually have a say in their future.
Mairav Zonszein, senior analyst on Israel at the International Crisis Group. Thank you, Mairav.
Thank you.